Okay, so imagine your country has this giant piggy bank. We're talking billions of dollars, all set aside for everyone's retirement. The big question is, how do you manage it? Who gets to be in charge? Well, today we're diving into exactly that question in Bolivia, looking at a really interesting analysis of its national pension fund and a debate over two completely different paths for its economic future.
So, let's start with the number at the center of all this, $24 billion. And to be clear, this isn't just government money lying around. This is the hard-earned, collective retirement savings of millions of Bolivian workers. You can see why what happens to this fund is a pretty big deal. And that really brings us to the core question here. What is the best way to manage a whole nation's retirement savings? You've got to balance safety with growth, all while keeping the public's trust. It's a tightrope walk that governments all over the world have to figure out. Let's see how this is playing out in Bolivia.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the current situation, the pension predicament. Then we'll diagnose the problems with the current system, la gestora. After that, we'll look at a huge international success story out of Norway and see how that inspires a proposal for a new social investment fund for Bolivia. Then, we'll see how state-owned companies fit into the picture, and finally, we'll lay out the two competing visions for the country's future.
Okay, let's dive right in. So, a little bit of background first. Back in 2015, the Bolivian government created a new state-run entity called La Gestora Pública, and the mission was simple: take over the management of all those retirement funds from the private companies that have been handling them. The idea was to put the state in the driver's seat.
But, as you can probably guess, it wasn't that simple. That takeover has been a really long and pretty controversial process. So what exactly are the issues with this state-run system? Let's get into the risks that the analysis highlights. The analysis we're looking at really zeroes in on 5 big concerns. And the biggest one, by far, is political dependence. Think about this for a second. The fund is run by the Ministry of Economy, so the government is the manager, the regulator, and one of the main borrowers from the fund. That's a huge conflict of interest. On top of that, it operated for years without a real board, which just fuels fears that decisions are made for political reasons, not financial ones.
And here's what that strategy gets you. La Gestora's returns have been stuck at around 3.3%. Now, according to the author, a pretty standard, globally diversified fund should be hitting somewhere between 6 and 8%. That performance gap, that's real money that isn't growing for people's retirement.
So, if the current way of doing things is broken, what's a better way? The source material argues you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Instead, it points to this incredibly powerful and frankly wildly successful model from across the globe. Norway's sovereign wealth fund. Get ready for this number. $1.6 trillion. That's trillion with a T. That's the size of Norway's national savings fund. And what makes that even more mind-boggling is that it was built for a country with a population of just 5 million people. It is truly one of the world's greatest stories of creating long-term wealth.
So how on earth did they do it?
Well, the secret sauce is actually pretty straightforward. Massive, global diversification. To minimize risk, their fund invests in over 90,000 different companies worldwide. We're talking everything from Apple to Google. But the most crucial part? It's managed by independent professionals with complete transparency, totally firewalled from political influence.
And this isn't just a number on a spreadsheet. The profits alone, not the original money, just the profits, are used to fund Norway's famous welfare state. We're talking top-tier healthcare, education, and pensions. And the #1 rule is you never, ever touch the principal. That way, the fund is there forever, for all the generations to come.
Okay, so that's the gold standard. Now let's get back to the solution proposed in the source material. The author basically suggests creating a Bolivian version of that Norwegian model, but tailored to fit the country's own situation.
It's called the Fondo de Inversión Social, or FIS for short. And its most important feature can be summed up in one word: autonomy. The whole point is that it would be legally protected, managed by independent pros, and totally insulated from politics and whoever happens to be in government.
And the roadmap laid out is actually pretty clear. Step 1, you take that existing $24 billion in pension savings and use it as seed money. Step 2, you hand it over to professional, independent managers. Step 3,
They invest it all over the world to get the best returns and keep it safe. And finally, step 4, you use only the profits to fund social programs for generations. Simple.
Now, if you stick to that plan, the potential growth is frankly staggering. The analysis runs the numbers using a pretty conservative 6% annual return. At that rate, the initial $24 billion grows to over $100 billion in 25 years. In 30 years, it's over $139 billion. And remember, that's without a single extra dollar being added. That's just the power of compound interest. But wait, there's more. The proposal doesn't just stop with the pension money. It also has a plan to tackle another huge economic challenge for Bolivia: its struggling state-owned companies.
Yeah. A quick look at the data from the source shows that some of these strategic companies are facing some serious headwinds. Gas production is way down, the electric company is the biggest debtor of them all, and the lithium company, well, it's producing almost nothing, even though Bolivia is sitting on top of one of the world's biggest lithium reserves.
So, what's the fix? Well, the author's solution is this kind of hybrid model. You sell 49% of these companies to strategic partners who can bring in fresh cash and new technology. This helps turn the businesses around. The state keeps majority control with 51%. And here's the kicker. The state's entire share of the profits gets funneled directly into that new social investment fund.
So what happens when you add this second engine to the fire? The projections get even crazier. The analysis estimates that by reinvesting the profits from these revitalized state companies, the fund could shoot past $170 billion in 30 years.
And this all brings us to the final, crucial debate. The author frames this whole thing as a fundamental choice for the country, a decision between two very, very different ideas about how you build national wealth.
So, on one side, you have the author's proposal that we've been talking about. Create a professional, long-term social investment fund to grow the nation's wealth for future generations. On the other side, there's an alternative idea put forward by politician Tudo Quiroga. This idea is to just divide up the assets, give shares in the state companies directly to every citizen right now. The appeal, of course, is that people get an immediate benefit. But the author of our analysis argues there are big risks, pointing out that the shares could be in inefficient companies and just lose value, or that people might sell them off cheap, and all that national wealth would end up concentrated in just a few hands anyway.
The author really drives their point home with this classic saying, pan para hoy y hambre para mañana. It means bread for today, but hunger for tomorrow. In their view, giving out shares now is a short-term fix that sacrifices long-term prosperity. It's like eating the seeds you were supposed to plant for next year's harvest.
And really, their whole argument boils down to this one powerful idea. They say the goal shouldn't be to just divide up the assets you have, especially if their value is up in the air. The goal should be to build and multiply that wealth in a tangible, secure, and professional way for the good of everyone.
So, we're left with a massive question, one that goes way beyond Bolivia. What's the better road to prosperity? Is it dividing up the wealth a nation currently has, or is it building an engine to create far more wealth for the future? It's a choice between wealth distribution and wealth creation, and that's the fundamental dilemma at the very heart of this explainer.